Hello and welcome to Inderes TV. Fiskars released their Q3 report last week, and now I'm in the studio with Analyst Rauli Juva to discuss the company. Hello, Rauli.
Hi, Pia.
So let's start with the Q3 highlights. Were there any?
Yeah, on the positive side, definitely there were, I think, two things. First of all, the Fiskars turned to sales growth for the first time, like in 3 years, I think. So that's a very promising sign as such. And then the second positive thing was that the Fiskars division actually fared quite well, taking into account the half of their sales is from the US, which have been hit by the both direct and indirect effects, but from the tariffs. So
Right.
in that context, the earnings were close to last year, which was a pretty good achievement. And then the negative was on the Vita side, that the margin there was very weak, and that then led to kind of pretty expected earnings, which were clearly down from the comparison period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your estimate is below Fiskars' downgraded full-year guidance, even though the company provided clear steps for what they need to do in Q4 to reach the guidance. Which of these steps do you see as most critical, and which do you suspect may not be achieved?
Yeah, it's very much Vita dependent on Q3. So one of the expectations was that the Fiskars segment kind of delivers solid Q4. That's off season for it's mostly gardening and then business. So that's not so big in earning terms, and we believe that will go okay. And the kind of swing factors are mostly in Vita, and the company expect that positive sales growth will continue. We have a small positive there, and out of Vita sales, the big actually majority is nowadays their own retail, so they don't have any visibility on it. So just kind of wait and see what happens in the Christmas period. So on that front, it's just the company's expectations, and then we have maybe a bit lower expectations on that. And then on margins, they didn't talk too detailed on gross margin, but they kind of commented that the fixed cost will be down. They were a bit higher, kind of timing wise in Q3, and I guess that will go probably on the lines that the company expects. So we are probably a bit more pessimistic on Vita's sales growth and margin than the company. But they, the guidance is from 90 to 100 million, and they added that they are likely to be at the low end of the guidance, and we have 88. So it's not a
dramatic.
huge difference considering Q4 is actually half of the full year earnings. So we are not talking about very, very major difference, even if we are below the guidance.
Exactly. And I suspect with Vita and the Christmas sales, a lot depends on how the economic, how people are feeling, how the economic situation, buying power is developing.
Definitely. It's very much up to the consumer sentiment, and of course how Fiskars' brands then fare in the competition.
Exactly. Fiskars is planning to introduce a new strategy and financial targets in early next year. What are your expectations on the new targets?
Yeah, they will most likely, or I think almost certainly, give out now targets for the Vita and Fiskars divisions separately, which are now basically operationally separated inside the company. The old targets were for the group to grow, I think 5% then on top line and reach 15% margin, which they never got even close. Well, maybe on the COVID years they were close, but not too close, and now they are clearly actually below 10. So I think for the Fiskars segment, that's a more slow growing segment. So maybe the growth target there is probably less than the old group target. So it could be something like 3-4%, or it could be like better than the market, which grows maybe 2 or 3% or something like that. And for that, I think the 15% margin target is pretty valid. They are quite close to that. That should be a realistic target for them. So maybe that one stays for the Fiskars segment. Maybe I don't know if they will give out some returns on capital targets. I haven't calculated those out that well, but Fiskars does a good return on capital, so that could be fairly high. And then for Vita, that should be higher growth. So I think at least the 5% should be their target, even if they have not grown now for a few years. They should definitely aim for kind of above GDP growth. And then the margin potential there should also be definitely in the double digits. Now they are doing like 5-6% this year, so they are doing pretty weak on the Vita side on the margin front now. But the aim that could be maybe a 2-step target or something that in a few years above 10, and then in the longer term something else like even the 15 or something like that. But that would be maybe a bit too ambitious for short term. It of course depends on what's the time frame done for that. But definitely at least double digit should be the target for that one as well.
Yeah. So we'll learn more in the beginning of the year, I suppose. There's been discussion that the Vita segment could be maybe divested or sold. What are the key considerations and challenges for such a divestment, especially with Vita's current low performance level?
Yeah, that's probably well. Let's start with the fact that they are finalizing the kind of the admin side and all the legal side of the separation in the beginning of next year. So after that, they are basically free to execute even kind of splitting out the two divisions completely from the current group. And divestment is one possibility for probably divesting Vita business. And but like you said, the weak earnings is not making it very attractive for Fiskars Group to sell it at the current earnings levels. Most likely nobody will pay as much as they would maybe hope to get. So probably the most or more likely alternative, if they will do the split, is just to spin off Vita as a separate listed company, which seems to be a trend nowadays in the Helsinki Stock Exchange. So there are several of these cases ongoing as we speak. So they might join that maybe next year then.
Yeah, and then possibly maybe if a divestment comes up, it might be a longer game that years down the road if
of course,
is better. And
definitely, and there's no certainty that they are doing the split next year. They might want to wait for some years and try to turn the Vita in the current structure still. But I think clearly the kind of separation of the two divisions inside the company suggest that in let's say in a few years' time they will be also spun out.
In your research report, you say earnings growth forecasts for the coming years require volume growth and a consequent improvement in profitability, which Fiskars has failed to deliver in recent years. What would need to happen for Fiskars to achieve sustainable volume growth and profitability improvement?
Well, one thing is of course just the market environment. So there was a very strong, or at least strong or very strong, depending a bit on the segments, but good demand anyhow in the COVID years, and then after that it has been a struggle for the consumer goods in general, but maybe a bit more for also Fiskars. So they have probably lost some market shares to like lower priced products, and they still have struggled with some brands in the Vita side, kind of, which have been bought years and years back, and kind of they have never gotten them really up to speed, kind of in growing sales. So there has been both internal and external issues, and so the market growth is of course one thing. Hopefully we will start to see now a bit better consumer environment gradually going into next year, so that should of course help. But then also they need to get the kind of weaker performing brands which in the recent times have been their kind of glass product brands, especially Waterford, but also the Finnish Iittala has been doing a bit weakly because purely on the volumes, and then with weaker volumes they have issues with profitability, so they need to do something internally with that as well. But in principle, as they if they could turn top line to the growth, there should be quite nice operative leverage to support also the margins and earnings, and that's what we are to some extent looking for the coming years.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess with the market picking up, there is a clear possibility of improvement, but nobody should expect the COVID era levels because that was an exception in itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you already mentioned the effects of the U.S. tariffs. And how significant is the potential of possibly compensating these through price increases next year, and how does this affect the overall profitability outlook?
Yeah. Well, like I said, they that mainly relates to the Fiskars segment, and they actually did I would say amazingly good job in Q3, like reaching almost the comparison period earnings. Q2 was very weak when the kind of initial hit came, and I think general expectations was that the Q3 would have been also weaker. So it seems to be going quite okay. There's still the additional steel tariff which came in later, and when we'll have a further negative impact. But with the track record they have now compensating the kind of first wave of the tariffs, I think that they should be faring quite okay. So going into next year, there might be some negative impact still from the additional tariffs in the beginning of the year, but then when we get to the Q2 with very weak comparison figures, there's definitely a clear improvement potential as the price increases have compensated the tariffs. So it's definitely can't remember how many millions they were down in Q2, but it was probably more than 10 million on the group level. So it's definitely a significant amount, even in the full year scale.
And then finally, what is the valuation and recommendation like at this moment?
Yeah, we continue now with reduce. The share came down there ahead of the earnings, so we turned from sell to reduce, and now it's a bit more balanced in terms of risk reward, but still the valuation is on the high side, especially for this year. It's clearly high with the weak earnings. It's clearly over 20, but also for next year, when we already expect a clear earnings uptick with these price increases and some market tailwind, even there it's P18 and EV of 15, which for Fiskars is fairly modestly growing profile is still on the high side in our view. Yeah. So that's why we're stay on the negative side.
Okay, thank you very much, Rauli. So Fiskars reduced recommendation and waiting for a market pickup and a new strategy next year. You can read more at inderes.se.